Let's now start developing the model components of our BMI calculator. But there's one very sound software engineering practice I would like you to apply immediately as you start developing your app, which is called Test Driven Development. Let's switch to paper and then just discuss this idea very quickly, and then we apply that right away. Okay, it is the so-called principle of test-driven developments. Okay, test-driven developments. Or sometimes people just give the acronym TDD. So what's really the key over here is the word test. So the test simply means we would like to test something before we use something. Okay, so now in our model view controller pattern, so we talk about view, which only has the capability of accepting inputs and also display output with no intelligence. Okay, again, there's no intelligence here. Okay, I'll just say no intelligence. It's simply displaying and accepting inputs and outputs, etc. And then we also talk about how you can define controller over here as another side of the pattern. And over here, it simply try to retrieve the inputs that have been entered in the view components. And also we can do some simple conversions. Conversions from input string. As we said before, everything that you retrieve from the GUI components is simply just a string, which is a sequence of characters. If you really want to interpret the user enter string as a number, either as an integer or as a floating point number, you have to do some conversion. But the way we do the conversion is rather standard, so you don't have to worry about it too much for the input string. Okay, and then in the previous video, we talked about a principle called separation of concern. Okay? Separation of concern. Which means we try not to really handle more than one concerns in a single place. In the case of the view, we only do input outputs. In the case of controller, we only do retrieval and conversion. So these are things of a similar nature. Now, how do we do computation? The computation can depend on which app you're trying to build. So it's really application specific. So in this case, we do not want to do the computation in either the controller or the view, because in that case, it will violate the separation of concern principle. What we do is we try to have a third component called model over here. So the model here is going to somehow implement. So you will see this word very often from now on. Implement simply means you're trying to somehow put your abstract concept, whatever that you think that should be doable, into programming and then try to run it using the machine. So that's the implementation process. Okay. Of course, in this course, we use Java to do the implementation. So we do implement with so-called business logic. You also see this term also rather often. So the business logic simply means for each specific app, there's certain logic for the business which we would like to implement. For example, in the case of the BMI calculator, what's the business logic? Given the weights and the heights, we want to apply the formula of weight divided by the square of heights and then calculate the BMI for the person. Okay. So the business logic should really change from application to application. Okay, so the model here is really the intelligent part. Now, even for experienced software engineers or programmers, they cannot be so sure whenever they write any Java code is really going to have the correct implementation for the model. So what they really have to do is, before they release their app to their customer, they really have to make sure they reasonably tested the correctness of their model. So that's why in this case, we have to introduce like a mini components over here. Over here, you can think of somehow we have another components over here. Let's call it test or tester. So now this test over here is somehow going to say, as soon as you start developing your model and your model becomes executable, I'll write it down in just a moment. As soon as your model's code becomes executable, you should really start developing your tester so that you can see gradually how your model should behave. And then as soon as you realize, oh, this is not really the right direction to go, if you make any logical mistakes, in that case, you can fix it. So the tester is really good to give you feedback. And you as a Java developer, you should be a very good tester as well. Okay, because if you submit or if you release some app which does not behave according to the requirements, it's useless. Okay, so you really want to have test to really help you. So the test is really important over here. I'll show you a very quick way of developing some framework for running the test, so that while we're developing the model, we can try to see exactly how the model should behave as we're developing using the tester. Okay, so now what's the principle for test-driven developments? The principle is very easy. I'll write it down as a simple sentence over here. That means you should write and execute. See, we'll also see this execute word very often from now on. It simply means to run your computer program. Write and execute tests to verify the correctness of your model code or program. As soon as, okay, the word over here, as soon as, is really the key, which means you don't have to wait until you're finished with everything of your model code. You want to say, as soon as I finish a tiny bits of my model code that's already executable, I should start writing the test. So that's really the essence for test-driven developments. As soon as, I'll write it here, okay, running out of space. As soon as the model becomes executable. So here, the word executable might seem a little bit vague to you right now. I'll try to explain along the way in the tutorial series and along the course. Executable simply means we already have a self-contained small unit in your code that can be run already. Okay, we'll get to there. Okay, so that's kind of the idea for test-driven development. That's really one of the important learning outcomes for this course, because for you to become a good software engineer or Java programmer, or any other programming language, you do not just dive into coding until completion always. You should really have to pause a little bit and then to write some tests to make sure what you have done so far is really okay. And then you do not continue until you're satisfactory with your progress so far. So test-driven development is really, really important. So that's why I teach you day one of the course. So you really have to apply that for every exercise you do for the course. Okay? Now, let's see how we can apply the test-driven development in Android IDE, the programming environments. Let's see how we can do that. Okay, let's now switch to your Android Studio. This is where we left off from the previous video. So again, this is the view XML. This is the controller activity.java. We'll leave them for now. Okay, now let's try to do a tester before we even create the model. Okay. So now, for simplicity, let's simply go under app and then go under Java, because we're going to develop the tester itself is also a Java file. And then under ECS1022.bmi, let's create a new class. Right click on this particular package over here and then select new. And then go to Java class. Okay, we're creating a new Java class. The kind over here, simply class, don't change it. Now, what about the name? The convention for the name for a Java class is simply for the compound word, there should be no space in between, and every word should be capitalized. Okay, so now let's just call that, you can either call that test or tester. Okay, I'll just call it tester for now. Of course, if you want to make it a little bit more informative, you can say tester for BMI, for example. okay? Or you can say tester for whatever, okay? I'll just test it for now, okay? Also, later on when you go to the lecture, if you want to bring your laptop, sometimes I may run many examples in the class. So you can just create a generic, create a tester where you can try out all the examples just in the tester, okay? You don't necessarily have to build a fully fledged app in order to run the test. Okay, so now tester here and then say okay. Okay, so this is a new class, and we'll talk about public maybe later in the course. You don't have to worry. It's simply a class, and we'll talk about what a class really means when we talk about object orientation later in this series of tutorial. Okay, the name that we created was tester, and now we are in this particular package called EECS 1022.bmi. You can think of package as more like a folder concept. Okay, we are trying to organize our Java files. Okay, you can see the package name over here, EECS 1022.bmi, correspond to this package name over here, EECS 1022.bmi. Okay, there's one line I would like you to type that's always the same. Public static void main. Make sure it's case sensitive. You got to be all lower cases, MAIN, main method. Main, and then a pair of parentheses, and then put string over here. String is one of the data types in Java. Open square brackets, close square brackets. Okay, so this means an array, but we'll talk about array later in the course. And then put ARGS, args for arguments. Okay, you do not have to worry too much about what this line really means. We're going to just give you a framework where you can write different test cases. You can just execute and see what's the effects. And the easiest way to do this is by defining a main method. Main method has a special meaning in Java. Main method simply means if you want to execute this particular method, that will be the main entry point of execution. Okay, you can execute a method, and every line of code that you write within the main method will be executed. For example, let's say if you would simply want to print out something, I think that's the most of how we're going to do the test cases for this course. Later on, if when you go to second year, we're going to show you a different way of doing the test cases. Okay, you can say system.out.println. Okay, so this again, this part over here is also standard. Whenever you want to print out something to see, not really to your mobile screen, but just right on your computer screen. So that's easier. So you don't necessarily have to connect your tablet or mobile phone to your computer. So that's why a tester in some way is actually more effective for your production. You don't have to really connect your physical device and try to build the app and launch the app on your mobile device every time. You can simply run this test on your computer right away. Okay, it's much faster. But of course, once you are satisfactory with all your developments using the test, you can now launch your app on your device. Okay, it's a different process. And then over here, let's do something very simple. So here within the parentheses over here, we can pass some arguments or input for the, okay, let me just document this for you. Okay, again, whenever you want to do documentation for your Java code, there are two ways to do it. If the documentation is only one line, you can just say 2 forward slashes. Okay, you will see whatever you enter in this line here is going to be grayed out, which means these comments are not going to be read by the computer. It's only for the humans to read for documentation. It's going to increase the readability of your program. You can say this is a one-line comments. Okay, and we just and the other way for you to do a comment is multiple lines. So you forward slash star and then hit enter. Okay, you can see that automatically. You can see there is a line in between forward slash star and then star and backward slash. So what's within these over here, whatever here, it can be multiple lines of comments. This is the first line of, it's called block comments. And this is the second line of block comments. Okay, so I will actually try to document my code as an illustrator tutorial as much as possible. Okay, you should really try to document your code as well. Okay, so these are the two ways to do comments. Okay, you should try to do them right away. Okay, so now what goes between this and this, which means what goes between over here. Okay, you can see what we can type something within the parentheses, the open one and the closing one, will be printed to the console. Okay, let me show you, give you some example. Okay, the simplest one is simply put a string. Okay, for example, is a string. Okay, string is going to be within double quotes. Okay, you can see there's double quote here and double quote here. Inside that, we can say hello world. And this is similar to how your mobile app, when you first created your Android project, we also got hello world in the GUI components. But now try to compare these two scenarios. By default, if you try to run the default project, you should launch it in your Android tablet. It's going to show hello world on your mobile device. But over here, we're going to show you that without connecting your physical device, you can test it on your computer right away. Let me show you how you can do it. The way you run this is by, go under this EECS Gen 22 package and look for tester. Left click on that, and now right click. And then select run over here, and then click on run. And then it's going to take some initial process. You can see there's some building process over here. Just wait for that, and it's going to launch the tester for you. Just wait a little bit. Okay, and then it's going to print out hello world to the, so here you can see that we got hello world over here. So that's exactly hello world over here. That's exactly the effects for this particular print line. Okay, you can see now we can test your model, we can test whatever code you like just on the computer itself. We don't necessarily have to connect a physical device. Okay, it's more productive. Okay, now let's say, for example, let's see what's going to happen. Hello world Java, for example. Okay, and then you can relaunch the program. You can, there's a play button here. You can just click on that. It's going to rerun the tester. You can see rerun. If you click on that, okay, it's going to take again a little bit of time. Okay, it's going to say hello world Java. Okay, so now you can see the idea. Now I just want to show you some different ways of writing what can appear. What can appear within these two parentheses within here for a print statements are expressions. Okay, we talk about expressions more in the class. Expressions, let's talk about the two most common expression. Expressions can be either, well, let's say two common. Two common expressions are strings and numbers. Okay, so now here we can say we already got one string over here. Okay, and let me just copy this, cut this, and then paste it here. Okay. This line prints a string expression. Okay. And then let's have another one. This line prints an integer. Integer means without the fractional part. So now we can do system and out the print line. And then we can now do, okay, integer. Basically, the numbers in any programming language, it nicely correspond to what you will write in mathematics. So for example, 23. Okay, it will simply do it. I'll run the tester in just a moment to save time. And then we just have another line. Oh, by the way, for every print statement over here, make sure you always end it with semicolon. This is to tell the computer that that's it for this particular print statement. It's a very common mistake if you forgot to actually include a semicolon at the end of every statement. Okay, print statements. Okay, and then let's do another one. This line prints a floating point, or you can say real number. How about that? Just to be more mathematical. Prints a real number. In that case, system dot out dot print line 23.5, for example. You can see with the dot. Okay, it's just like mathematics. Okay. Okay. Now, what's more? You can also try the following. Okay. Now you can also try to have a declare we call declaration. Declare a variable. In some way, you can understand it as a placeholder that stores values. We'll try to see this is really the common way to go, because you don't necessarily just want to really write out the values explicitly. You can just store them in some placeholders, and then you can manipulate these placeholders other way in whatever way you like. For example, we'll talk more about decoration, etc. But I'll just give you some example. We say integer int is a type to say there is a placeholder called I, and then I is going to store integer only. Okay, integer I, and then let's say for now we store 23 into it, and then we have another integer placeholder j, and it's going to store 46. Okay, and now system dot out dot print line. Now I want to know what's the result for I plus j. In this case, it's going to give me the value that's currently stored in I, which is 23, plus, just mathematically, plus addition, plus the value that's stored in j. Okay, and now if you combine them, you can predict the result should be 69. Okay, so what other operators can you apply? Basically, everything that you can, all the arithmetic operators you learn from mathematics. I will just do them here. I'll just do the basic one. Minus, multiply, it will be just a star. And then we also got divide. And this one here, we'll talk, there's another operator which we'll talk more in the class, but I'll just write it here. Okay, this one here, this one will give you the quotients of the integer division. And this one here will give you the remainder. Okay, so now, that'll be enough, and then we'll do one more illustration, and then we are done. Okay, so of course you can run the tester to actually double check that that's really the one we want to have. And then let's try to do a little bit of string. You can also declare a string. Okay, you can see as opposed to integer over here, we're going to have a placeholder for string. And notice that the string is capitalized. Okay, string S1 is, let's say, York with a space. York like that. And then string S2 is university. Okay, so now we can say system.out.println line. Now, how do I print out York University with a space in between? Okay, I can say S1 plus a space over here. Remember, so this is so-called a string literal. So this is a string with a single space. So I'm going to have S1 with a space, followed by a space, and followed by S2. So this is exactly equivalent to if I simply do this. Okay, just York. Okay, I would say these two print statements will print out the same contents to console. Okay, one thing I would like you to draw your attention to. You can see over here we have I plus j where we use the plus. And here we say S1 plus a space plus S2, and we also use the plus. Okay, this can be some confusion over here. So we want to say, so this is what this is how we should understand it. the plus, which is this operator here. Operator is overloaded in the sense that it can be used for arithmetic addition or for string concatenation, depending on the types of its two operands. So what do I mean? So you can see over here, when you look at this particular usage of the plus operator, you can see I over here was declared as an integer, and J over here was declared as a placeholder for integer as well. So the two sides of the operands are integers. So plus in the context of integer operands can be used for arithmetic addition. So there should be no confusion for the computer to execute. And now on the other hand, for this particular use of the plus, you can see over here, S1 was declared as a string placeholder, okay? And then you can see that the space over here is also a string, okay? In that case, you can see that the plus over here should be for string concatenation, which means we just append one string after the other, okay? So this is a very, very quick example to show you some very quick example to show you how you can print out numbers, how you can print out strings, and how you can declare variables for integers and how you can declare variables for strings. Okay, just for completeness, how do we declare variables for real numbers? This is how you do it. Declare a real numbers. You can do, for example, the one we use is called the common one we use is double. Okay, double, and then you can say D1. Okay, you can say just exactly how you were writing in mathematics. 23.78, for example. Okay, so that's how you can declare. You can also play with the values. Now, what I want you to do is try to execute the tester again. Okay, click on this button here to rerun, and then let's wait a bit, and then you can see it's building, and then you will see that it's going to show you the result for every line. Okay, so now what I want you to do is go over all the outputs and convince yourself why they are output from the to the console, right? For example, you can see that the last two, you can see we actually got York University and York University. Why are they identical? Okay, you can see these two over here, right? It's because the system that out the print line, the last two we had over here was York University over here, the first one, and also we got S1 plus the space plus S2, right? Try to trace which line was printed by which line, okay? For example, this one over here was printed by which one, okay? I'll leave them to you as a small exercise, but we'll try to teach you more about how you can write expressions in Java. But this is a tester here, so every time if you want to try out something which you're simply not sure, just try it in the tester, and then you can create as many testers as you wish later on. So this tester is only for trying this small example for integers and string. We're gonna create another tester for our BMI model, which is a person, but we'll do that later.